different. I know people are very concerned about not being able to gather with their family at this time, but let's just take a reset this year so that next year we have even more time to celebrate with more folks in good health and good company. And because this year is going to be a little different, you know, you're going to be in your little nuclear or bubble. Maybe you're going to be Zooming with family or, you know, talking with them virtually, but this is the time to be creative and experiment and figure out what you can take to next year's Thanksgiving for everyone. So we're going to do a little spin on some things, right? I know the traditional Thanksgiving might be stuffing, mashed potatoes, marshmallow covered sweet potato casserole, turkey. I could keep going because I know with lots of different cultures and ethnicities, there are so many options for Thanksgiving. This year, I'm going to do something a little different. Not something I would typically do for Thanksgiving meals, but in an effort to make vegetables the star of your plate, I'm going to highlight some vegetables that you can bring to the Thanksgiving table or have for breakfast the morning of Thanksgiving, so you don't have to worry so much about cooking, or add it to your leftovers. Very simple, very easy. So the first thing I'm going to do, which is a little unexpected for Thanksgiving, is a tomato galette. And for those of you that don't know what a galette is, I'm going to show you first of all. But second of all, it's essentially a free-form pie. Low effort, simple, easy, whip it together. We're going to use some store-bought pie crust today. We're going to make it real easy. The next thing we're going to do is some string beans with roasted red pepper and some balsamic vinaigrette. And then we're going to make fresh made cranberry sauce, not from the can. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not doing canned cranberry sauce this year. I urge you all to go out and buy some fresh cranberries and make it yourself. It literally takes maybe about 20, 30 minutes at most. And then we're gonna make some yams. I'm gonna make them a little different. I'm gonna try and reduce the salt or the sugar on all of these things because, you know, with COVID, we're understanding a lot of the health disparities, and a lot of those health disparities are linked to different communities. And we notice in some of those communities, there are some pre-existing conditions. And some of those pre-existing conditions have to do with high salt intake, high sugar intake. So our goal is trying to still have good flavor, still have good fun, but be health conscious and be aware. So if you have any questions during this time, feel free to let me know, type them in the chat. Randy will check them out for me. Ask whenever. If I'm going too fast or I'm going too slow, Keith, what do they do? Did I catch you off guard?
I was muted. Yes. I don't know if you noticed. I'll share the spotlight with you there. First of all, see, I'm in my virtual kitchen with the 1950s retro look. I wanted to welcome everyone to today's presentation. My name's Keith. I am helping Randy out with running the actual Zoom meeting itself. So I want to welcome you to today's presentation. We ask that you go ahead and turn your video on so you have a little bit of interaction there, and mute your microphones. You should have come in with your microphones on mute already. Controls for this are at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see the controls, you can move your mouse to the bottom of the screen and you'll see a little microphone and a little camera. If you click on the microphone and or camera, it'll turn them off. When they're off, there'll be a little diagonal red line through them, and the caption below tells what'll happen when you click it, not what the current state is, just so you know about that. And those buttons can help you switch back and forth. As Chef Alexa said, feel free to ask questions during the presentation. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can pop your questions into the group chat. You can also, if you're in Windows, press Alt-Y, or on Macintosh, Option-Y to raise your hand. And Randy and I will see a little blue hand up in your corner that lets us know that you've asked a question, and he can call on you and manage the flow of everything that way too. I think that pretty much covers everything. Make sure you check in with Randy for attendance so that he can make sure that everyone who was here gets follow-ups with recipes and etc. Back to
Awesome.
you, Alexa.
Thank you so much, Keith. All right, now the housekeeping rules are over. Now it's time to get down to business. So we are going to start with our tomato galette. And for that, I'm going to need fresh tomatoes. Heirloom tomatoes are best, but I know they might be a little hard to find right now. I have some sharp cheddar cheese. I'm using white sharp cheddar cheese from a block of wonderful cheese that I just grated myself. But if you don't feel like grating and you don't have anything else in the house, feel free to use some pre-shredded cheese. It's not going to hurt anything. I'm going to use some salt, pepper, some spices, and some basil. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to slice up some tomatoes. Whenever you're slicing your tomatoes, use a serrated knife. The serrated knife is going to help you actually keep the form of the tomato without squashing it or squishing it. And we're just going to make simple slices. This is a real simple recipe. This tomato tart is something that you can use with, let's see, mushroom and leeks. You can make an onion tart. You could even make like similar to like a ratatouille type tart where you use zucchini, tomatoes, eggplant. Very simple. I'm going to add a little bit of color. So I have some green tomatoes. I have orange tomatoes. I have red tomatoes, and I have yellow tomatoes. Look at that beautiful green tomato. And it's going to be just perfect. And the flavors are really going to pop with that cheddar cheese and with the spices and the basil that I'm going to use, and a little bit of garlic. And I'm going to use granulated garlic for this. I'm not going to use fresh garlic because, you know, we're just going to make it a little easier for us this time. You know, this year should really be about ease and convenience and making sure you're spending time with your family. And in order to do that, we don't want to be in the kitchen all day. I mean, yeah, we're home, but right now, 2020, let's focus on family. Let's focus on memories, and let's focus on our mental health. And there's no need to add in any extra stress. All right, so I am slicing up these wonderful, beautiful looking tomatoes. Look at that, they're so amazing. And I have all my colors. I have some orange, I have some yellow, I have some red, I have some green. And I have my prepared baking sheet, which is, again, just the store-bought pie crust. You can certainly make your own. But remember, we're looking for something a little easier. And I'm going to take my shredded cheese and sprinkle it on my crust, paying attention that I don't go past maybe about 1/2 inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch border around the outside of the pie crust. Because a free-form pie or galette, well, I'll show you the magic in a moment. You can also do these with fruit. So instead of making, you know, an actual pie with a pie tin and things like that, go ahead and make a free-form pie crust. Okay, so hold on. I'm not ready yet. So I'm going to add a little bit of basil, thyme, and rosemary onto my cheese. And I'm going to take some basil leaves, fresh basil leaves, and I'm just going to tear them and sprinkle them right over my shredded cheese. And maybe I'll use, depending upon the size, these are big ones, I may use 3 or 4. You could also use mozzarella for this, like a caprese almost. But that sharp cheddar is going to give you a really, really lovely flavor. And remember, if you joined me before, you know I like to layer flavors. I like to layer spices and seasoning because you don't want your dish to be one note. You want it to have levels and layers and personality and character. So that's what we're doing. All right, I use a couple more because, I like basil. And basil is in the mint family. So if you ever notice you're eating basil and you get a little tummy upset or a little acid reflux, it could be because of the basil. But if you do have acid reflux, don't make this tart because tomatoes are not going to be good for you. Maybe opt for a mushroom and a leek tart with maybe some Asiago cheese or a little bit of goat cheese. That would be really good. So now I'm going to design my tart and I'm going to alternate my tomatoes. Again, paying attention to that border. I'm just going to literally lay them around. Now we know from our last class that we had that roasting tomatoes can be amazing. It just elevates the flavor of the tomato and it gives you just more character. So that's what we're opting for right now. Some character and some good flavor. Another red one. I think that looks pretty nice. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a touch bit of salt on those tomatoes. And I'm hitting it right on the top of the tomatoes because I wanna make sure each tomato is seasoned. And I'm saying seasoned this time because, as I mentioned, salt is a flavor enhancer and tomatoes have a flavor. And the reason why we're adding that salt is because we want to bring out that flavor. So I'm going to add some pepper on top of the tomatoes. And this is fresh cracked pepper. And I'm going to, this is how you make a galette. Remember that border you left? Now I'm simply going to fold over the border.
Chef, we have somebody wondering where you got those good looking tomatoes.
Oh, you know what? I actually got them from Wegmans on Amherst. And when I tell you, I think these were literally the last good heirloom looking tomatoes and they were perfect. I was so surprised. All right. So what I have here is I have one egg, maybe about a tablespoon, 2 teaspoons of water, and a pinch of salt to break up the albumin in the egg. And I'm just gonna brush the sides. Now this tart is gonna take about 40 to 50 minutes in the oven, so that's why I'm trying to get it in now. And I also need to fill up my pot for my green beans that we're gonna make. And then get that on the boil. So, let me see. So typically what I would do is I would just throw this in the freezer for maybe about 5 to 10 minutes to just get that pie shell nice and firm. So that definitely is recommended. But I'm just gonna throw it in the oven and we're gonna see what happens this time. Come on with me. And remember, what I did was I had the parchment on my baking sheet, but I also sprayed it with the nonstick spray. And it's going in at a 425-degree oven. And I'm going to set my timer for, let's start with 40 minutes. That'll also give me good timing for this 1-hour class, which I'm already 20 minutes in for. I'm going to fill this up with some water. Any other questions about galette? Galettes are so simple and so easy, and there's something that you can make on the fly. So if you're looking for something for brunch, if you're looking for something for dessert, if you're looking for something for a great simple dinner, make a galette. I mean, this is almost going to be like the perfect grilled cheese sandwich with tomatoes on it. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna work on our cranberry sauce. And our cranberry sauce is very simple. I have 12 ounces of fresh cranberries. I have blood oranges because I don't know why I chose blood oranges. I just think they'll be really nice. I have some ginger that I've already kind of shredded. Can you stop the water, partner? my TV production person. He's multitasking right now. And for the low sugar, and you can put that right on the burner and put it on high. For the low sugar aspect, I have maple syrup, and I'm going to use the maple syrup instead of sugar. White sugar is refined. The glycemic index is, whew, and you never know what you're getting with white sugar. So you use honey or use maple syrup. You could use agave, but I'm going to caution you a little bit on agave, and please always do your research. Agave in itself and the traditional way that agave is made is wonderful. It has a low glycemic index. It's actually good for your health. It's a wonderful thing, but you have to be mindful of the agave that you find in, the commercial stores right now, because it's so popular and it's being commercially made in high abundance. The process of making agave has been altered. So traditional agave, there is no heat added to the process of making agave. But when they bottle it commercially, they're adding the heat to it. And that heat actually chemically breaks down the agave, and it doesn't have the same benefits as you normally would find in authentic traditional agave. So just a little side note, always do your research. Whenever you find a new product, whenever you find supplements or new foods or superfoods, always do your research. All right, so that's my little segment. Let me go get my. All right, I just have a regular. This is a 2-quart pot. I'm gonna pour my little cranberries in, and I'm going to get a little bit of water, maybe about a half cup or so of water. I'm going to add in my ginger. And this is about, I would say maybe a half inch of ginger. So I peeled it with a spoon, peeled off the skin, and then I just use one of my graters, not a microplane. I use a regular grater because sometimes it's hard to grate ginger with a microplane. But this is a microplane, and it's great for zesting, and it's great for doing garlic. But today we're using it for our orange. And I'm going to take about 1 orange and I'm going to zest it right in. So we're going to have a cranberry, orange, and ginger cranberry sauce. Has anybody out there made your own fresh cranberry sauce? And if you have, 1, I hope I'm showing you something new. And 2, tell me about your recipe. And I will admit, sometimes you just can't go wrong with that guilty little pleasure of the canned cranberry sauce. All right, now, this is where you can have a little bit of fun and be a little creative. Now, in terms of the sweetener for your cranberry sauce, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of sweetener to it. You can go anywhere from a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of maple syrup, which is what I'm using right now, or honey. Or you can make your cranberry sauce with as minimal amount of maple syrup as you think you need for this number of servings, and then kind of increase it as it cooks, as you taste it. But I wouldn't use more than a 1/2 cup. A 1/2 cup is a lot. 1 teaspoon of any sweetener or sugar is about 3 to 4 grams of sweetener, of sugar and carbohydrates. So I have a 1/4 cup, about a 1/2 cup of water that I'm adding, and my maple syrup. And I don't use a lot of sweeteners, so I'm probably gonna go with that 1/4 cup. And then literally the next thing I do is I put it on my burner. I bring it to a boil. When it comes to a boil, I turn it down to medium and I let it simmer for about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And I want to make sure I stir it often, so I don't want anything to stick. So just make sure everything is stirred in there. You don't have to use orange zest. You could use other spices if you like. You could use cinnamon. You could use a little bit of cardamom. Again, have fun. I mean, you won't have your aunts and your uncles and your grannies, you know, complaining about the new dish you made this year. You only have you and your nucleus or your bubble to do that. So cranberry sauce is really fun because, and I'm going to get this little one out of there because he's not happy. Cranberry sauce is really fun because it's something that you can have for more than just Thanksgiving. Especially when you make it fresh, you know the ingredients that are in there. And you can add it to your Thanksgiving table with your cranberry sauce and everything. For your leftovers, you can add it to a wonderful Thanksgiving sandwich with your turkey and your stuffing and some cranberry sauce and a little bit of cheese and maybe those fresh rolls that you're going to make. You could add it to a little bit of yogurt. There's so many things that you can do. Even just spreading it on top of some of your biscuits or rolls or bread or anything like that. You know what you could also do with this, which is really awesome. And I hope you all are taking notes. If you got some of that pre-rolled dough, like the Pillsbury crescent dough, for example, after you make your cranberry sauce, use that cranberry sauce as your filling for your croissants. Just spread it right onto your croissants as they're in their little triangles. Put, you know, maybe a couple of dollops, spread it out just a little bit, roll it up and bake it. And you have a cranberry croissant. All right, so I'm gonna let this come to a boil. It's gonna take a little bit, but I don't want to walk too far away from it because I don't want to boil too fast or too hard. So I'm gonna go back over and I'm gonna start cutting up I'm gonna start seasoning my yams. And when my cranberry sauce is just about done, I am gonna squeeze some of my orange juice onto the cranberry sauce and just mix it in a little bit. Yams. These are yams, not sweet potatoes. Well, yeah, or vice versa. There is a difference between sweet potatoes and yams. So what I have done, I've already kind of washed these and I have peeled them and I have cut them. And this is just my famous quarter moon cut, very simple. Cut the potato in half lengthwise, cut it in half again, and then just make little slices. Very simple, fast, easy. All right, so what I'm doing now, this is about 4 medium-sized sweet potatoes. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of arranging them in the pan because when you're roasting vegetables, you want to make sure that, one, you have a high heat oven. So 375 to 425 roughly. But you also want to make sure that you don't have any vegetables that are crowded, because what ends up happening is that you end up steaming your vegetables instead of roasting your vegetables. So your vegetables need air around them in order to circulate that heat. All right, now I also don't like cleaning dishes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to season my yams right in the pan. And in order to do that, I'm going to use some olive oil, a little granulated garlic, sweet paprika, chili powder, some honey. I know it sounds like a lot, but this is going to be really good. I'm going to mimic that, you know, thyme, rosemary, and basil flavor, some pepper, and some salt. All right, ready to rock and roll? Is that boiling yet? The cranberries? Yeah. Okay, can you turn the cranberries down to medium now that they've come to a boil? Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna use about, for this amount of potatoes, and because I'm adding honey, I'm gonna use about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. And I'm going to add my honey, if it comes out. If you don't want to use honey, you certainly don't have to. Typically, if I'm cooking for my family, I will not use honey, only because the sweet potatoes are sweet in and of themselves. But if you do use honey, only use about maybe a tablespoon. I'm sure that will be very small in comparison to those wonderful sweet potato casseroles that we love so much. I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic, granulated garlic. And the way I measure by sight. So the way I measure is I just measure until I cover everything maybe once or twice. Little sweet paprika. And don't be afraid of the spices. Spices are good. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to, mimic the original flavor of what you're cooking, which you don't want to do. But if you like spices or you like flavors and you like how they combine with the vegetables you're cooking, go ahead and be free with them. This is chili powder. Not going to use too much of this, just a couple shakes. My kind of like Italian themed spices. Again, just to cover. I'm gonna get some of my fresh cracked pepper and some salt. Now I'm gonna hit a little bit of salt right there, and I'll tell you why in a second. I'm gonna use gloves. Turn that down a little more. I'm gonna use gloves because I don't have the TV magic to wash my hands. All right, and then I'm just gonna mix it up. I'm gonna make sure everything is nice and coated. Get that honey on every single piece of sweet potato. How are we doing in TV land? Everybody out there is a little quiet.
Yeah, everybody's quiet today, Chef. Even the chat is quiet, but I can tell you it's looking good in your kitchen.
Well, I'm having fun. I'm preparing for my own Thanksgiving, and we don't typically have any meat on any animal protein on Thanksgiving. So the most we'll have is maybe salmon or some type of fish or something like that. So ours, we kind of definitely focus on just the sides and the vegetables. So I'll probably have some greens mixed with some kale, but maybe sauteed in some garlic and ginger. Maybe adding a little bit of miso to them to give them a little bit of a flavor. Maybe some smoked paprika. We may have some stuffing or some rolls. What else do we typically have for Thanksgiving? We may do Brussels sprouts. Roasted Brussels sprouts are amazing and awesome. So those are types of things that we have. All right, so my sweet potatoes are layered out very nicely. And these are gonna go right in the oven. All right. And meanwhile, I'm going to check my galette, and I'll show you in a second. Here's my galette, looking all beautiful. 25 more minutes. My potatoes are in. I'm gonna stir up my cranberries. So look at the cranberries. You'll start to see that they're bursting. Oh, and they smell amazing. That ginger and that orange. Oh. So, and what this is going to do, it's going to be very liquid now, but as cranberry sets in the refrigerator or on the side, it's going to start to congeal and get that jelly feel and flavor. So I'm just going to stir these up. Keep stirring them. My water is still coming to a boil for my green beans. So while my water is preparing to boil, I'm going to cut up some peppers. That's going to go with the green beans. All right. And just a taste. So I probably will add a touch more maple syrup, just because it just needs a little extra sweetness. Cranberries they have a sweetness to them, but they're not really technically sweet. So be mindful of that when you are making your cranberry sauce. The reason why the canned cranberry sauce is so sweet is because they add sugar, a lot of it. All right, so now clear this out of the way. I'm gonna work on our peppers for our string beans. And because our string beans are nice and green, we're gonna go ahead and use some yellow and orange for our peppers. Now, the one thing about peppers, which is interesting, is they have a little bit of pith here. So when you're doing your peppers and it's something for like a presentation, they're not getting chopped, take out that little slice of pith because that can actually create some bitterness with your pepper. And you want your peppers to be sweet. You want that natural sweetness there. All right. And I'm cutting around the pepper just so I can keep those seeds intact. So I don't have a lot of cleanup and I don't have, you know, folks complain that there is a seed in the green beans. So all I'm gonna do after I clean up these peppers is slice them. And this dish is very versatile. You can do a lot with this dish. You can serve it cold. You can serve it warmed. The way I'm making this, I'm kind of making it in the anticipation that someone is going to reheat it. So I'm actually not gonna roast these peppers this time. I am going to blanch or steam or boil my string beans. And I'm only gonna do it for maybe about 7 or 8 minutes. And then I'm going to use the heat of the string beans to kind of warm these peppers. And I'm going to season it with a little bit of cumin, some granulated garlic, some salt and pepper. And then prior to serving, I'm going to reheat it. If I'm making this like the day before, I will reheat it. And then I will finish it off with some balsamic vinaigrette. So these dishes that I'm doing, these are all things that you can make in advance. So you're not running around the day of Thanksgiving. And this, I think, is probably the equal amount of string beans that I have. But I really like peppers. And this becomes more than just a string bean dish and more than just a string bean casserole. This is peppers and string beans. All right, so let's see. I'm going to go ahead and put my peppers in my bowl. Now I'm going to salt the peppers just a little bit. And right in a stainless steel bowl, just a little bit. And I am going to prepare my water for my green beans right over this way. Oh, watch your back. So when you are boiling, blanching, or steaming vegetables, you do need some type of little salt. Salt is going to bring out the brightness of your vegetables, and you want brightness. You don't want it to be bland. You want that flavor to come through, and salt is a flavor enhancer. You don't need a lot of it to finish it, but when you're cooking it, it's good to salt your water almost to the point that you would salt pasta water. So about that much. And again, this is not going to be, it's floating in this water, so it's not going to be overly salty on the string beans. They're just going to have this nice burst of flavor. All right, so into my boiling water are my clean string beans. And I am going to go about maybe 7 minutes on those. So when I'm washing all my produce, you notice I use a lot of produce. And when I do that, in order to wash my produce, I'll put it in some cold water with some vinegar, any type of vinegar, apple cider vinegar. I typically use white vinegar because I have that around the house because I use it to clean windows and clean my surfaces. So I just simply use white vinegar. And then I let it sit for maybe about, I don't know, anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes. Not all my fruits and vegetables. So if I have something like a soft skin strawberry or blueberry, I'll only do 30 seconds because I don't want to break down that fruit because ultimately I want it to stay whole. All right, look at that cranberry sauce. So if you like your cranberry sauce kind of whole cranberries, then don't break them all. Leave some of them whole. I like it broken down. So I go through and I kind of make sure each cranberry is kind of smashed up. And I keep that low just for a few more minutes. All right, so let me tell you about some spices. So when I buy my spices, I buy them whole and in bulk. This is cumin for an example. I don't know if you all have seen whole cumin, but it kind of looks like caraway seeds. They're very small little seeds. But what I'm going to do is I keep them whole because it prolongs the freshness of them. And I only grind up what I need. So I have actually invested in a little $12 spice grinder, which is right here. And that spice grinder I'll use to break down all my spices. It's a little loud, so bear with me. When you buy powdered spices and things like that, honestly, their efficacy or the strength of them only lasts 30 days. It doesn't last a long time. So if you have any really old spices that you know have been in there in your cabinet for a year, toss them. That should be your New Year's resolution. Let's see how this did. Oh, beautiful. Just a little bit more. And you have control over how fine your grind is when you use, it's like a coffee grinder or a spice grinder. And what I have is freshly ground cumin. And it's the best way to do your spices, and they're more flavorful. And again, you get to prolong the life of them. All right, so my green beans need about 2 more minutes. I'm gonna check out my cranberry sauce. Oh, I'm gonna make my balsamic vinegar for my string beans. Now you all remember I told you I buy in bulk. So this is my big container of balsamic vinegar. I'm gonna fill up my my jar. This is an 8-ounce jelly jar. I'm gonna fill it up maybe about halfway. Oh, that's a little more than half. So I'll pour a little bit out. And the way I'm making this is a 1-to-1 ratio. Typically with salad dressings, I would do a 1-to-3 ratio, meaning 1 part vinegar, 3 parts oil. This time I'm just using a 1-to-1, roughly 1-to-1, because I want that vinegar to kind of come out. So I'm gonna add a pinch of salt, pinch of pepper, and a little bit of maple syrup because I have it at hand. And I'm going to add to the rest of my jar oil. Right to the inner rim or that bottom rim, right there. Then I'm gonna throw on my lid and shake, 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 shake. Need some music. Help me get my shake going on here. And this is a balsamic dressing that I'm gonna use for my string beans and my red pepper. All right, so I'm gonna go over to my pot, put my green beans in, to my bowl that has the salted pepper in it. I'm gonna check them first because I wanna make sure that they're green. I wanna make sure they're done. Perfect. Now, I do not want these super soft. I want them a little al dente because I'm gonna be reheating them. So I need to be mindful of that. I don't want mushy green beans. I want them to be nice and green and bright. I don't want gray vegetables. All right. And meanwhile, my cranberry sauce is looking spectacular. So I'm gonna turn off my heat. Still have some whole ones in there. I'm gonna turn off my heat and then I'll come back in a little bit and I'll finish seasoning it if it needs it. All right, now to my string beans, I'm gonna go ahead and add my granulated garlic. I'm going to add my seasonings. Gotta get that cumin in there. Cumin is a secret ingredient. Then I'm gonna toss everything together so it creates a beautiful dish. Now I'm gonna let it cool off a little bit because I don't want it too hot when I put on the balsamic vinegar. Okay. I'm gonna check on my potatoes too. Let's see. And we're almost done. The hour's almost up. Our food's almost done. It's 1:48.
Where did the time go?
Oh my gosh. So my potatoes, they're cooking away. They might need a little longer than this remaining 10 minutes. My galette is beautiful. Bubbling away. All right, now this cranberry sauce. What do we have here? Get a spoon to taste it. Not too hot. It's gonna hold heat, so be very careful when you taste it. Make sure you blow it off. That's really good. You have the the tartness of the cranberry. Depending upon your taste, at this point, you may want to add a little more maple syrup, but for me, this is perfect. I didn't use too much. I can taste the ginger. I can taste the orange. Possibly before you add in your maple syrup, go ahead and add in that extra squeeze of orange. And I'm going to do that right now. Hold on one second. Because that sweetness from the orange is also going to add to it.
Hey, Chef, what are your thoughts on throwing some onion in with those green beans?
You could certainly throw in onions. That would be easy. You can saute them quickly first. I would not throw in raw onions, only because I'm not a fan of necessarily putting raw onions in dishes that I know are going to be sitting out, because you know, that could be a little bit of an issue when it comes to, you know, people being sick. Onions hold a lot of bacteria. But yeah, adding in some quickly sauteed onions, or if you want to slice up some onions nice and thin, throw them in the oven for, you know, while you're roasting your sweet potatoes, that would be really nice. So I'm squeezing in some of that orange juice. And I'm just gonna stir it up. And if you add in any liquid after your cranberry sauce is kind of done, just turn on the heat a little bit, so that orange juice can incorporate into the cranberries and you don't lose that thickening agent. So to my cameraman, you're gonna be eating cranberry sauce for a little while. Get another spoon to taste this. I don't want to cross-contaminate here. Oh, that was good. That's it. So who makes fresh cranberry sauce? Randy, do you make fresh cranberry sauce? Rita?
I do not. I think I might give it a shot though.
I have learned a whole lot during this hour about so many things. I never saw a tomato galette. Oh my goodness gracious. I want a slice of that. Yeah, those sweet potatoes. I've had the spicier sweet potatoes. That's a delicious food. It is so yummy. And you can even toss that with like some spinach or something like that. OMG, stop it.
You could even toss it with your Brussels sprouts. You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Sometimes people will put Brussels sprouts with their butternut squash and maybe some cranberries, but you can add it to your sweet potatoes.
I hope that you have a chance to do some plating because I want to see it all together.
Yes.
I hope I do too. I'm running against the clock here.
Yeah, you could just see all the colors coming together. It's going to be such a colorful presentation.
Yes, it's fall. It's beautiful. I know I'm a little heavy on the orange and the red, but you know, that's okay because these are some of the colors. And I want to get the green in there because I know we do that traditional string bean casserole, but just to do something different. All right, let me see if I can find the plate. All right, I'm gonna give my potatoes and my galette to the last moment to make sure get everything in there.
If you can't plate it, if you would just lay it all out together like it's a Thanksgiving table, anything, we've got to see it together. Don't let us down. You're such a super.
I'm working it. We'll see. Look at me, I'm clearing up my space because you know, us chefs, we do like to have clean spaces, but when you have an hour to cook 3 or 4 dishes, sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
You are a super chef, not just a chef. You've got superpowers. Go ahead, girl. It is fabulous.
So it's easy, you know, absolutely having your mise en place together prior to cooking is going to help you in the kitchen, not just for Thanksgiving, but for everyday meals. Many times people, especially those that are not either used to being in the kitchen or don't like being in the kitchen, it's a matter of, you know, how do you set yourself up for success, right? And in order to do that, you need to make sure you read your recipe, read through it, understand what ingredients you need, understand the quantities that you have in advance, and then set everything out. So you literally set yourself up for success, have everything in its place. And in the kitchen, we have a word for that, mise en place. And that word is so appropriate to daily life. And I know a lot of you on this call understand exactly what I'm talking about. Because if you aren't setting yourself up for success, how can you be successful? Very simple, I think, kind of. All right, hold on. Let me get my cranberry sauce and I'll put that in a nice little bowl. Now remember, it's gonna firm up. Look at that, against that white bowl, that color is literally popping.
Mm-hmm.
You can garnish it with a little string of the blood orange or the peel, or let's see if I can do this right quick. Got about 3 minutes. Let's see how much magic I can make in a couple minutes. Get the right knife. All right, so I have my orange and I'm gonna kind of peel it like I would my melon. So I'm gonna cut off the ends until I see the fruit. Ooh, look at that. And then I'm going to slice down and peel off the pith and the zest of the fruit until I simply expose it. And this is the way that you can cut your watermelon, your honeydew, your cantaloupe. All right, then I'm going to look for the sections in my orange. I'm going to follow the veins. And I come up with only the fruit. If you've never done this before, practice it at home. It's great for garnish. And if you have, if you don't like the that membrane from citrus fruit, do this, with your grapefruit, with your regular orange. And then you don't have the bitterness.
I've been doing it so wrong for so long, Chef Alexa. That's a great tip.
I mean, it's lovely and it's beautiful. And, a lot of people don't do it, but you can make some TV magic right in your kitchen as well. And I'm going to fillet, don't have the right knife, but I'm going to fillet the peel to get all the pith off. So I'm only left with the zest. And then I'm going to simply slice it very thin, like a julienne. And I'm going to lay it across like that. How's that for some magic?
That looks
amazing.
All right, so that's one. All right, let's get our green beans in a bowl. This is family style, remember? We have our wonderful spices, our cumin, our garlic, our peppers. And don't be afraid to put that on even before you reheat it, because reheating it would also be wonderful. All right, check on my onions and my galette, my potatoes and my galette. Ooh, look at that galette. Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Look at that. Absolutely amazing. And our potatoes aren't quite done, but I'm gonna put them on a little bowl for you, just so you can see it all come together. And with the potatoes, when you roast them, this is actually fine. I will tell you a secret. For me, I love the brown parts of the tomato, that caramelization. So for me, I cook them a little longer, just because, I don't know, something about roasting vegetables. I just feel they need to be nice and soft and tender and just melt in your mouth. But some people like them a little, a little harder, a little more al dente, and that's perfectly fine too. But I think in order to really make your roasted vegetables sing and stand out, You gotta let them get nice and caramelized. So I'm actually gonna put these back in my oven and let them go. And then I'm gonna bring my galette over. Oh, it's amazing. And there you have several sides for your Thanksgiving. Your galette, you can simply serve with a side salad and your green beans. You could even mix up your cranberry sauce within your sweet potatoes, and that would be wonderful. That would be, actually, that would be really, really, really good. And you have the colors of fall, you have your heirloom tomatoes. So, you know, tomatoes are still in season. They're still good to eat tomatoes. They're still flavorful. They're not mealy. You have your cheese underneath, which is local cheese. And I want to show you, if I can, under the galette, should be just like a pie. So if you look underneath, it should be nice and crispy and hard, just like a pie. That crust is nice and brown, golden brown. When you're doing pastries, make sure your pastries are golden brown and glistening. And it's beautiful. You could always, you know, if you want to garnish this with like some fresh basil or a little bit of thyme, you can certainly do that. If you want to finish it with some nice finishing sea salt or Maldon salt, if you have it, that would be great. For your green beans, I don't think you need any garnish at all. You have your green, you have your yellow, you have your red. And for your sweet potatoes, well, they're just yummy. So you can just eat those up and have a good old time. And remember, I'm not going to say if, when you make your fresh cranberry sauce, make sure you keep it in your refrigerator and you take it out every morning. Add it to your rolls, add it to your leftovers, add it to some yogurt, and just have fun with it. And that's what you have are some holiday sides. Reimagined.
Chef Alexa, thank you so much for this. Is actually our last November class with Chef Alexa, folks. But do not worry, we're going to be back in December. As a matter of fact, December 10th at 7 o'clock. Then we're going to be back again on Saturday, September 12th at 1:30, and Tuesday the 15th. So we've been playing around with some different times, hoping that we can reach a great audience. Audience, thank you for your time today. Chef Alexa, every class you've shared wisdom that transcends the kitchen. We appreciate you, and we are really so pleased to bring your show to folks in Buffalo and across New York State. So, folks, have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Chef Alexa, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you all joined us, and we hope to see you at the next class. And I think I may need a report or some comments about what you're going to make for Thanksgiving this year. So find me on Facebook, by Alexa Joan. You can also find me on Instagram, by Alexa Joan. My website, excuse me, that green bean is really good. My website is www.alexajoan.com. You can find recipes, some information. Send me a message.
Have a good day, folks.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so glad you joined me.
Bye. Thank you, Chef.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Rebecca. Bye, Rita.